The polished oak door swung open with a soft click, a sound that usually meant I was home. Tonight, it felt like the opening scene of a horror movie starring me. I was back a day early from my business trip, a bouquet of Sarah's favorite stargazers in one hand and a goofy grin plastered on my face. I'd pictured her surprise, her arms wrapping around my neck, the scent of her vanilla perfume filling my senses. Instead, a chilling silence greeted me. A silence that felt heavy, unnatural. I tiptoed up the stairs, my heart thumping a playful rhythm against my ribs. "Surprise!" I mouthed to myself, pushing our bedroom door open. The grin on my face didn't just fade, it shattered. The flowers slipped from my grasp, scattering white and pink petals across the floor like shrapnel from an explosion. There, in our bed, the bed where we'd whispered dreams and fears, where our son was likely conceived, was Sarah, and she wasn't alone. A man I didn't recognize was with her, his back to me. The world tilted, the colors draining away until all I could see was the tangled mess of limbs on our sheets. My wife, my Sarah, with him. A sound escaped my throat, a guttural mix of a gasp and a sob. They both froze. Sarah's eyes, wide with something I couldn't decipher, not guilt, not shame, but something colder, met mine. The man, lean and with dark, slicked-back hair, sat up, pulling the sheet over himself with an infuriating calmness. "Mark," Sarah said, her voice a flat, dead thing. "You're early." "Clearly," I choked out, the single word scraping my throat raw. Rage, pure and white-hot, flooded the void where my heart had been just seconds before. "Who is he? Who the hell is he, Sarah?" "It doesn't matter," she said, pulling on a silk robe. She wouldn't look at me. Her gaze was fixed on a spot on the wall, as if I were a ghost she was trying to ignore. The man stood up, dressing quickly. He had the sterile, detached air of someone who had practiced this. "I should go," he murmured, not to me, but to her. He didn't even have the decency to look afraid. He just looked professional. He walked past me without a word, and I didn't stop him. I was paralyzed, a statue of betrayal in my own home. Once the front door clicked shut, the silence returned, now thick with poison. "Why?" I finally whispered, the question hanging between us like a guillotine. "It's complicated, Mark," she replied, her voice still devoid of emotion. "You wouldn't understand." "Try me!" I roared, the sound echoing in the room. "Try to explain how you could do this to us, to our family, to me?" She just shook her head, her jaw tight. "I can't. I want a divorce." That was it. No tears, no apologies, no desperate pleas for forgiveness. Just a cold, clinical dismissal of our 12 years together. It was more painful than the affair itself. I packed a bag in a daze, my movements robotic. Every object I touched, a framed photo, a shirt she'd bought me, our son's drawing on the fridge, was a fresh stab to the gut. I drove to the nearest soulless hotel, the city lights blurring through my tears. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers, sleepless nights, and whiskey. I was a wreck, but through the haze of pain, a new feeling began to emerge: suspicion. Her coldness didn't make sense. The Sarah I knew, the woman who cried during sad movies and rescued spiders from the bathtub, wouldn't be capable of such cruelty. This was something else. This was a performance. Fueled by a desperate need for answers, I started digging. I hired a private investigator, a grizzled man named Frank, who looked like he'd walked straight out of a noir film. I needed to know who that man was. I needed leverage for the divorce. I needed a reason that made sense. Frank called me 2 weeks later. "Got a name," he grumbled over the phone. "Dr. Leo Vance. He's an oncologist at St. Jude's Medical Center." An oncologist, a cancer doctor. The pieces clicked into a horrifying, ugly picture. She was faking an illness. It was a sick, manipulative ploy to gain sympathy, maybe to get a better settlement in the divorce. The man in my bed wasn't her lover, he was her accomplice in some twisted scheme. The rage returned, hotter than before. How could she stoop so low? I stormed over to the house, ready for war. I found her in the living room, staring out the window. She looked smaller, paler than I remembered. I didn't care. "I know," I spat, throwing a file with Frank's report onto the coffee table. "I know everything, Sarah." "Dr. Leo Vance, an oncologist. What's the plan? Fake a terminal illness so you can take me for everything I'm worth? Is that what this is all about? Was sleeping with your fake doctor part of the con?" For the first time since that night, her composure broke. A single tear traced a path down her pale cheek. Then another. She didn't look at me. She just reached into a drawer and pulled out a different file, a thick medical chart with her name on it. She slid it across the table towards me. "He's not my accomplice, Mark," she whispered, her voice cracking. "He's my doctor, and my ex-fiancé from before I met you." I stared at her, confused. "What does that have to do with anything?" "Open it," she urged, her voice trembling. "Page 4. My hands shook as I opened the folder. My eyes scanned the medical jargon I didn't understand, until they landed on a few words I did. Glioblastoma, grade 4, inoperable, prognosis 6-8 months. The air left my lungs. The floor seemed to drop out from under me. I looked up at her, my mind refusing to connect the dots. She wasn't faking an illness to ruin me. She was hiding an illness because she was dying. "I found out 3 months ago," she said, the words tumbling out between sobs. "I didn't know who to turn to, so I called Leo. He's one of the best. He confirmed it. There's nothing they can do." "But why?" I stammered, pointing back towards the bedroom. "Why would you?" "Because I love you," she cried, the raw agony in her voice tearing me apart. "Don't you see? I couldn't do it to you. I couldn't watch you become my caregiver. I couldn't let your last memories of me be of a weak, dying woman. I watched my father go through it with my mom. It destroyed him. I couldn't do that to you, Mark. I wanted you to hate me. I wanted you to move on, to be angry, to find someone else and be happy. I thought a clean break, a betrayal, would be easier for you than watching me fade away. That night, I staged it. I begged Leo to help me. It was the hardest, most horrible thing I've ever done. I sank to my knees. The entire world had been flipped upside down. Her betrayal wasn't an act of hate. It was a twisted, misguided, heartbreaking act of love. She wasn't pushing me away because she didn't love me. She was pushing me away because she loved me too much. The anger, the hate, the rage, it all evaporated, replaced by a grief so profound it felt like I was drowning. I crawled over to her and wrapped my arms around her frail body, and we just cried. We cried for our lost future, for the horrible secret she'd carried alone, for the pain we'd both endured. That night changed everything forever, not because my wife cheated on me, but because I learned she didn't. I moved back home the next day. There was no divorce. There was only time, precious and borrowed. We spent her last 6 months making memories, not as a broken couple, but as two souls clinging to each other at the edge of the world. I held her hand through every treatment. I read to her when she was too weak, and I told her I loved her 1,000 times a day. Her greatest fear was being a burden, but taking care of her was the greatest privilege of my life. The betrayal I thought I saw that night was nothing compared to the truth. The truth was that I was losing the love of my life, and she had tried to save me from the pain, even if it meant destroying herself in the process.